The wind, a relentless sculptor of the night, carved its cold fingers around your worn trench coat, tugging at the lapels as you stood sentinel. Above, the skeletal arches of the International Bridge toll plaza at night hummed with a low, metallic thrum, a constant vibration that settled deep in your bones. Headlights streamed past in blurred streaks, red tail lamps receding into the distant glow of another country, indifferent to the quiet vigil you kept. Each passing vehicle was a reminder of lives moving forward, leaving you marooned on the edge, a forgotten sentinel in a world that had long since dismissed Marcus Thorne. The air tasted of diesel and the faint, briny scent of the river below, a potent cocktail of urban decay and the wild, untamed currents beneath. Your gaze, once sharp and unyielding, now held the weary glint of a man who had seen too much and failed to stop enough. The weight of that failure was a phantom limb, always there, a dull ache behind your ribs, a constant companion since the day the badge was stripped, the reputation shredded. You traced the scar on your left knuckle, a relic from a struggle long past, a silent testament to a career that ended not with a bang, but a whimper of unsolved questions. Tonight, the solitude was a familiar cloak, comforting in its bleakness. You'd come here often, drawn by the stark liminality of the place, the boundary between what was and what could never be again. It mirrored your own existence, straddling a chasm of regret. The name, Anya Sharma, a brilliant investigative journalist, echoed in the silent chambers of your memory, a siren song of what could have been. Her murder, dismissed as a random act of violence, had been the cornerstone of your downfall, a case that unraveled not just her life, but yours. The official reports, neat and tidy, were a lie you could never swallow, a bitter pill that festered in your gut. A pair of headlights cut through the gloom, slowing as they approached the unmanned toll booth where you leaned against the concrete barrier. It was not a routine stop. The vehicle, a dark, unmarked sedan, pulled to a halt a few yards away. The rear door opened, and a figure emerged. Tall, with a bearing that spoke of quiet authority, the senior operative moved with an economy of motion, his silhouette stark against the faint glow of the plaza lights. He stopped a respectful distance away, his hands clasped behind his back. You knew him, or at least his reputation. They have a way of dictating our movements. He took a step closer, his gaze steady, unwavering. It seems one of your more persistent ghosts has decided to resurface. Anya Sharma. The name hit you like a physical blow, a sudden constriction in your chest. You felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, a primal instinct to fight or flee. What about her? Your voice was rough, betraying the calm you tried to project. Her file, once sealed, has been reopened, the senior operative stated, his tone devoid of emotion. New information has come to light. Information that points to a more intricate design than initially believed. He paused, allowing the words to sink in, to churn in the turbulent waters of your past. A design that into place. A politician's rise, a journalist's inconvenient truth. Thoroughly. The official narrative was a lie, you stated, not a question. A bitter affirmation. The official narrative served a purpose at the time, the senior operative corrected smoothly. It kept the peace, maintained order. But now, the currents shift. One that pulls strings from the elite's highest echelons, a network so entrenched it makes the old guard look like children playing at espionage. He reached into his inner jacket pocket, producing a slim, unmarked file. He held it out, an offering, a challenge. We need someone who knows the taste of that particular failure. Someone who remembers the specific texture of that injustice. Someone with nothing left to lose, and everything to gain. Your gaze dropped to the file, then flickered back to his face. Redemption. The word hung in the frigid air, unspoken but palpable. The chance to right a wrong that had defined your downfall. The opportunity to give Anya Sharma the justice she deserved, and perhaps, in doing so, reclaim a piece of yourself. It was a dangerous game, one that would drag you back into the very world you had fled, a world of deceit and power, where the truth was a commodity to be bought and sold. Why me, you asked, the question a low growl. There are others. Still in uniform. Still with resources. Because you know the scent of it, Marcus. The specific rot of a cover-up. Because you carried the weight of her unfinished story for years. Trust is a luxury we can no longer afford within the usual channels. You, Marcus Thorne, are an anomaly. An unburdened weapon. A ghost returning to haunt the living. The wind howled, a mournful cry around the concrete pillars. The weight of it was immediate, heavy with the ghosts of the past, the promises of the future. You were being pulled back, not gently, but with the ruthless precision of a master craftsman, into the very heart of the storm. The determination, long dormant, began to stir, a slow, burning ember rekindling in the depths of your weary soul. The game was on. The wind howled, a mournful cry around the concrete pillars. You reached out, your fingers brushing against the cold, smooth cover of the file. Before you, the figure remained unmoving, a silhouette against the distant, shimmering city lights. No words were exchanged, only a shared understanding that hung in the frigid air like a suspended breath. Your fingers closed around the manila folder, the paper cool and slightly textured beneath your touch. This was it. The anchor to a past you tried to drown, now resurfacing, barnacle-encrusted and demanding. His gaze, even in the dimness, was an unreadable depth. He simply nodded, a slight, almost imperceptible dip of his head, before turning. The air grew heavier with each retreating echo. You stood for a long moment, the file clutched tight, the decision already made in the desperate clench of your jaw. Redemption was a fool's errand, a mirage shimmering on the horizon of a barren landscape, but answers? Answers were a different beast, a hunger that had gnawed at you since the badge was ripped from your chest. This case, the murder of the journalist, had been the first crack in your foundation, the first tremor of the quake that brought your world crashing down. You retreated from the toll plaza, the bridge's metal framework groaning above you like an ancient skeleton. The journey back to your solitary dwelling was a blur of streetlights and the rhythmic thrum of the engine. The city, a sprawling beast of concrete and glass, offered no comfort, only the ceaseless grind of its existence. Your apartment, a single room draped in perpetual twilight, smelled of stale coffee and forgotten aspirations. Bookshelves sagged under the weight of forgotten texts, a silent testament to a mind once sharp, now dulled by regret. You placed the file on the scarred wooden table, its pristine condition a stark contrast to the dust motes dancing in the solitary beam of the table lamp. With a deep, shuddering breath, you opened it. The first page was a faded photograph, the journalist, vibrant and unyielding, staring out with an intensity that seemed to defy death. Below it, the sterile text, victim, investigative journalist. Cause of death, single gunshot wound to the chest. Date, October 14th, 5 years ago. Your eyes scanned the initial reports, the original detective's notes,
The official conclusion, random act of violence, robbery gone wrong.
The words were a bitter taste on your tongue. Then, you found them, the journalist's personal effects, listed meticulously. A worn leather-bound notebook. Its pages, transcribed and copied, were filled with dense script, cross-referenced names, and cryptic symbols. This was the real heart of the file, the journalist's unfinished symphony.
Your gaze snagged on a recurring name.
Not a person, but a corporate entity, Ethelred Holdings. It appeared repeatedly, linked to various shell companies, offshore accounts, and land acquisitions.
You remembered the name vaguely from the original investigation, a peripheral mention, dismissed as irrelevant.
But now, paired with the journalist's frantic annotations, it took on a different resonance. Flipping further, you found excerpts of articles the journalist had been researching, some published, some clearly unfinished. One focused on a proposed urban development project, spearheaded by a newly formed consortium. Another hinted at campaign finance irregularities surrounding a rising political star, the candidate, now a prominent figure, a front-runner in the presidential race. You pulled out your old, battered tablet, its screen a familiar glow in the gloom. A quick search. The proposed urban development project? It had been approved, fast-tracked, and was now a gleaming monument of steel and glass, its ribbon-cutting ceremony just last month, with the candidate himself presiding, and the consortium? Its primary investor was a subsidiary of Ethelred Holdings. The journalist had been digging into the candidate's financial ties, into the very network that was now elevating him to the highest office. The random act began to unravel, thread by thread, revealing a meticulously woven tapestry of influence and power. You found a series of dates scrawled in the journalist's notebook, next to what looked like coded meeting times and locations. One date, in particular, stood out, 3 days before the murder. Next to it, a single, underlined word, summit. And below that, a sketch, a stylized, almost heraldic symbol, a coiled serpent devouring its own tail, an Ouroboros. You leaned back, the old wooden chair groaning under your weight. The serpent. You'd seen it before, recently. Not in a file, not in a book. It was subtle, almost subliminal. A small pin on the lapel of a campaign manager during the candidate's last televised address. A discreet watermark on a pamphlet promoting the urban development project. A flicker in the background of a photograph from a recent elite fundraising gala, a carving on a heavy oak door. The air in the room grew thick with unspoken implications. And the threads of that silencing led directly to the very heights of power, to a symbol that now seemed to slither into every corner of the city's elite. The city exhales a metallic sigh as you step from the vehicle, the humid air heavy with the tang of salt and exhaust. Above, the skeletal lattice of the International bridge looms, a giant's ribcage against the bruised indigo of the sky. The fluorescent hum of the toll booths casts a sickly yellow glow on the asphalt, illuminating the ghosts of fleeting headlights, the echoes of hurried transactions. A chill, not entirely from the night's cool breath, snakes through you. This was where the journalist's journey ended, abruptly, violently, dismissed as a footnote in the city's endless ledger of misfortune. Your gaze traces the concrete barriers, the worn lines of faded paint, searching for an aberration, a whisper of what was missed. The original reports, sterile and unfeeling, had painted a picture of chaos, a random mugging. But your gut, that insistent, rebellious organ, had always screamed a different tune. You walked the perimeter, your footsteps a rhythmic counterpoint to the distant rumble of trucks crossing the span.
The air itself feels thin, stretched taut with unspoken secrets.
Near where the journalist's body had been found, tucked beneath a corroded utility box, your eyes snag on something small, out of place.
It's a peregrine falcon, wings swept back as if in mid-stoop.
The original investigators, in their haste to categorize and close, had likely dismissed it, if they even found it, as a random trinket, a piece of debris, but you remember.
You remember the journalist's office, cluttered with books on ornithology, their particular fascination with peregrines, those fierce, high-flying hunters. They used to say peregrines represented truth. Soaring above the currents of deceit, seeing everything. This bird, clutched in the hand of the dead, was not random. It was a beacon, a final, desperate message. This wasn't a random act. This was a silencing. The journalist was sending a message about the height of their perch, the breadth of their view. Leaving the toll plaza, the wooden bird a strange weight in your palm, you drive through the city's labyrinthine arteries, the glow of neon signs reflecting off the rain-slicked streets. Your destination is a quiet, unassuming establishment, a forgotten corner where old loyalties and hushed conversations still hold sway. The scent of stale beer and desperation clings to the air. You find the former colleague nursing a watered-down amber liquid, eyes scanning the room with a practiced paranoia. He doesn't offer a handshake, just a tight, unreadable stare. Thought you were a ghost, vanished into the ether. Some ghosts return, you reply, sliding into the booth opposite him. Especially when the dead start talking again. You place the carved peregrine on the table between you. His eyes fix on the bird, a flicker of something recognition? Fear? Darting across them before his face settles into a mask of indifference. What's that? A souvenir from your exile? It was with the journalist, you state, watching him closely. Found near the body. Overlooked. He pushes his glass away, a sudden tremor in his hand. The case is closed, Marcus. Robbery gone wrong. Sad, but simple. Simple for those who didn't look close enough, you counter, leaning forward. The journalist was investigating something big, wasn't they? Something that reached high. Let it lie. For your own sake. His voice drops even lower, a guttural rasp. Some trees have very deep roots. And very sharp thorns. Threats now, you ask, your voice calm despite the prickle of adrenaline. That usually means I'm close to something real. He shakes his head, a weary, almost defeated gesture. It's not a threat. It's a warning. There are forces at play, Marcus, powerful forces. They don't forget. They don't forgive. And they prefer their secrets buried, permanently. The journalist found that out the hard way. You don't want to follow. He picks up his glass, draining it quickly, then stands. Walk away, Marcus. The peregrine sits on the table, a silent sentinel. The journalist wasn't just investigating, they were close. So close they left a coded message, a breadcrumb for someone like you to follow. And the former colleague's veiled warnings, his palpable fear, confirm it. They want this case to remain a random act, a closed file. The path ahead is fraught with unseen dangers, but the determination in your gut, long dormant, now burns with an unyielding fire. You will find the truth, no matter how high it soars, or how deep it's buried.
His words, "Walk away, Marcus. This isn't worth it," had been a cold breath against the fire of your resolve, but the chill has only stoked the flames.
You cannot walk away.
Not when the ghost of the journalist, the unanswered questions of his violent end, still cling to the edges of your vision like phantom smoke, demanding justice. You've spent the better part of the day sifting through them, a forensic archaeologist digging through layers of bureaucratic dust. His research focused on infrastructure projects, on land acquisitions, on the quiet, often unseen machinery of urban development. You traced their intricate paths, following the breadcrumbs of public records and leaked internal memos that the journalist had painstakingly gathered. The names shift, the addresses change, but a pattern emerges, a subtle current beneath the surface.
Then, a name repeats, an anchor in the swirling data Ethel group.
Not a single corporation, but a vast, sprawling conglomerate, a holding company with tendrils reaching into energy, logistics, and, crucially, real estate development. The journalist had circled this name, underlined it in red ink, and scrawled a single, potent question mark beside it. You pull up recent news articles.
On your tablet, cross-referencing the Ethel group with current political landscapes.
The candidate, the one vying for the highest office, has often lauded Ethel Group's visionary investments in his campaign speeches, particularly their involvement in a massive, controversial port expansion project from years ago, a project that had been greenlit with unusual speed and minimal public oversight. His murder wasn't random, it was a silencing. The room feels smaller, the air thicker. You feel a prickle on the back of your neck, the familiar sensation of unseen eyes. You gather the most critical documents, the ones linking the Ethel group to the candidate's past, tucking them into a worn leather satchel. The city outside hums with its indifferent nightly symphony, but to you, it feels like a predator's breath. You need to move, to confirm these connections, to find the living threads of this web. A name surfaces from the journalist's files, a contact he'd referred to only as the auditor, someone who had access to the deeper financial records of the Ethel Group.
It's a strange place, a liminal space between nations, where transactions are quick, faces obscured by the brief flash of headlights and the impersonal exchange of currency. You drive, the city lights blurring into streaks of neon and gold. Each turn of the wheel tightens the knot of tension in your shoulders. You're no longer just seeking answers, you are a target. The concrete behemoth of the International Bridge looms ahead, its steel cables a skeletal cage against the bruised indigo sky. Trucks rumble past, their exhaust fumes hanging heavy in the cool night air. You scan the faces in the other lanes, the brief glimpses of drivers framed by their windows. The air crackles with an unspoken warning. You check your rearview mirror, then the side mirror. Nothing. Just the endless flow of traffic, the rhythmic clack of tires over expansion joints. A sudden, jarring impact throws you forward, your head snapping back against the headrest. A sharp, metallic shriek tears through the night. Your car lurches, scraping against the concrete barrier of the toll lane. The peregrine clatters from your pocket, landing on the passenger seat. It doesn't stop. It doesn't even slow. The sedan vanishes into the night, its taillights swallowed by the vast expanse of the bridge. Your hands grip the steering wheel, knuckles white. The smell of burning rubber and ozone fills the air. The message, delivered with brutal efficiency, resonates through your bones. This wasn't an accident. And it has noticed. The game has begun, and the stakes have just risen to lethal heights. There is no walking away now. Only forward. The peregrine, cool and silent, still rests in your palm, a constant, carved sentinel. Its weight is a familiar anchor against the rising tide of doubt and determination that churns within you. The colleague's words, "Walk away, Marcus." You cannot walk away. Not now. Not when the ghost of the journalist, silent and insistent, whispers through the fragmented notes you unearthed from the buried archives, leading you here. Headlights sweep across the asphalt like restless spirits, momentarily illuminating the stark lines of concrete barriers and the stoic faces of the toll collectors in their booths. The rumble of heavy trucks crossing the span vibrates through the ground, a low, persistent growl that echoes the disquiet in your own chest. Above, the bridge itself is a skeletal gleam of steel and cable, strung with 1,000 distant lights that blur into a shimmering, artificial constellation against the ink-black sky. You stand by the deserted edge of the parking area, near a cluster of dormant, unlit toll booths, the kind reserved for peak hours that never seem to come this late. The journalist's last, hurried entry, scrawled in a shorthand only you, with your years of deciphering desperate confessions, could truly understand, had been an address, a time, and a single, stark word sentinel. This plaza, this bridge, this silent vigil. A lone sedan, an older model with dimming headlights, pulls into the lot, its engine a low purr against the roar of the bridge. It parks several spaces away from you, the driver's side facing your position. The engine cuts, plunging the immediate vicinity into a deeper quiet, save for the incessant drone of traffic. You watch, your muscles taut, as the driver's door opens. Even in the gloom, the gate is unmistakable. Marcus, the voice carries across the expanse, a low, familiar timbre that pulls at the threads of a forgotten past. It's the old colleague. His face, etched with a decade more of weariness than you remember, catches the distant glow of the bridge lights. He looks older, heavier around the middle, but the eyes, even from this distance, still hold that guarded, knowing glint. "You actually came," he says, approaching slowly, his hands tucked into his pockets. He stops a few feet from you, the space between you crackling with unspoken history. The message was cryptic, even for you. The journalist's notes, you reply, your voice a low rasp against the wind. "They led me here. Marcus." Some ghosts refuse to stay buried, you counter. Especially when they're tied to a politician's rise and a conspiracy that runs deeper than we ever imagined. He sighs. A sound heavy with resignation. "I warned you. Something about the accident that cost me my badge. There are things. Connections you don't see. The journalist wasn't just investigating the politician." "What are you talking about?" "He had a theory," he continues, his voice hushed, urgent. "About your last big case. The one that went south. The warehouse fire, the missing evidence, the informant who vanished. She believed it wasn't an accident. That's why I'm here. To find out who, and why." "No, Marcus. You don't understand the depth of it. She found evidence that the informant, the one you vouched for, the one who disappeared, he was already compromised. He was working for the very organization the politician is now connected to. He was a plant. And the fire, the missing evidence, it was all orchestrated to discredit you, to remove you from the path of their rising power." Your mind reels, a maelstrom of fragmented memories and new, terrifying possibilities. The informant. A young man,
desperate for a second chance, whom you had believed in, vouched for, put your own reputation on the line for. He had disappeared the night of the warehouse fire, presumed dead, or a coward on the run. You had blamed yourself for trusting him, for the oversight that cost you everything. But if he was a plant, you knew he was compromised? He hesitates, his gaze dropping to the asphalt. Not all of it, but yes, pieces. After you were disgraced, after the journalist was found, I started looking, connecting dots. She came to me. This wasn't just about a past failure, it was a deliberate, calculated destruction. And the old colleague, your peer, the one who shared your beat, your struggles, had known. Why didn't you say anything? The question is a raw, ragged edge. Why didn't you help her? Why didn't you help me? He finally looks up, his eyes bleak. Because they're everywhere, Marcus. They have eyes and ears in every corner. And they have leverage. On everyone. They threatened everything. My family. My career. They said if I breathed a word, they'd make sure I disappeared, just like the informant. Just like I told you. But she wouldn't listen. He was too close. He had found something else, something that directly implicated the politician. Something that would have brought down their entire operation. What was it, you demand, stepping closer, your hand tightening on the peregrine? He shakes his head, a look of genuine fear clouding his features. I don't know. She didn't tell me everything. But she said it was a definitive link. A ledger. A name. Something that proved the politician was involved from the very beginning, even in the setup against you. The realization dawns, stark and unforgiving. And the old colleague, bound by fear and a compromised loyalty, had watched it unfold, silent. He hadn't just withheld information, he had allowed you to carry the burden of a setup, had let the journalist die pursuing a truth he already knew pieces of. You let me believe I failed. You say, the words of bitter accusation. You let her die. I did what I had to do to survive. Marcus, he retorts, a defensive edge in his voice. This isn't a game. These people. They don't play by rules. Now. Before it's too late for you, too. You're getting too close to what she found. The personal link, the agonizing truth, has been revealed. Your downfall wasn't just a failure of judgment, but a meticulously orchestrated act, and someone you trusted had been a silent witness, perhaps even an unwitting participant in its perpetration. The peregrine in your hand feels less like a sentinel now, and more like a heavy, damning stone. Not when the truth of your own past, twisted and betrayed, demands vengeance. The city's arteries constrict around your vehicle, each lane a tightening noose. The betrayal, a phantom weight, rides shotgun, its silence more deafening than any scream. The hum of the engine, a low growl beneath your hands, does little to drown out the echo of a conscience bought and sold. Your grip on the steering wheel is a testament to the storm raging within, knuckles stark white against the dark leather. Cryptic coordinates, a desperate, final act from a trapped soul, had flickered onto your burner phone mere minutes after the Sentinel's compromised confession. You navigate the final stretch, the urban sprawl slowly yielding to a starker landscape. Concrete pillars rise like ancient monoliths, scarred by exhaust fumes and the relentless march of time. The air shimmers with the distant heat haze from unseen engines, even as the cool night deepens. You guide your vehicle into a desolate parking bay, the engine ticking softly as it cools, a mechanical sigh in the vast quiet. The rhythmic thud of tires crossing expansion joints on the bridge above becomes the hypnotic heartbeat of the night. A cold metallic tang, a mix of ozone and damp concrete, hangs heavy. The message had been precise, its urgency a barbed hook in your gut, third from the easternmost booth, beneath the faded graffiti of a broken compass. Your gaze, a sharpened blade, carves through the concrete labyrinth, the beam of your tactical flashlight cutting a searing path through the gloom. You reach the designated pillar. The graffiti, a crude drawing of a compass with a fractured needle, is barely discernible beneath layers of grime and neglect. Your gloved fingers trace the rough texture of the concrete, seeking the anomaly. The surface feels uniform, unyielding. Had the sentinel, even in their desperation, led you into a trap? Or worse, had they simply been wrong? Then, a faint click. A small, almost imperceptible seam, cleverly disguised, yields to pressure. Inside, nestled within a small, waterproof pouch, lies a single, unassuming data chip. Its surface is cool beneath your fingertips, a tiny vessel holding what could be the truth, or another layer of deception. You retreat to the relative privacy of your vehicle, a hum of the cooling engine a meager shield against the vastness of the night. A torrent of meticulously organized files spills forth, each name, each date, each transaction a hammer blow against the wall of lies. The names, once whispered in the dark corners of your mind, now leap out, bold and damning. The obsidian hand, a cabal whose tendrils, you now see, wrap around every lever of power, industrialists, high-ranking politicians, financiers whose fortunes dwarf nations. Their motive, absolute control. Their method, the ruthless elimination of dissent. It shows the journalist's final moments. Not a random act, as the official report had concluded, but a calculated execution. It is the same symbol you'd seen etched into the mahogany desk of the politician's campaign manager during your initial, ill-fated investigation, a detail dismissed then as mere eccentricity. The truth, stark and brutal, hits you with the force of a physical blow. The weight of it all descends, heavy and suffocating. This isn't merely a murder case, it's a war for the very soul of the city, perhaps the nation. The path ahead is fraught with peril, a labyrinth of lies and violence where every turn could lead to oblivion. But looking at the screen, at the still image of the murdered journalist's face, a profound clarity settles within your chest. The past failure that defined your downfall, the badge you lost, the reputation shredded, they all coalesce into a single, burning purpose. There is no turning back. The cost will be immense, perhaps everything you have left. But the truth, once unearthed, demands to be seen. You will be its reluctant herald, its unwavering champion. The cold wind whips around you, carrying the scent of distant water and exhaust fumes, but the chill that matters now is the one that fuels your determination. You will see this through, Marcus Thorne. You will. Your grip on the steering wheel is a white-knuckled testament to the fury coiling in your gut, a cold, hard knot of resolve. The radio crackles, a sudden, jarring intrusion. A dispatcher's voice, clipped and urgent, describes your vehicle, your license plate. You flick the dial, silencing the accusation, but the words already hang in the air, solidifying your new reality. You are no longer merely pursuing, you are being hunted. The rules have shifted, the game has turned lethal. Your instincts, honed by years of navigating the city's underbelly, scream a warning. The vehicles around you, once anonymous streams, now feel like predators closing in. You scan the rearview mirror, your gaze sharp, dissecting the flow of headlights. Another, a black utility van, drifts into position on your right flank, its windows tinted to an impenetrable obsidian. They aren't just following, they are hurting. Your pulse thrums a frantic rhythm against your temples. This isn't random. They know. The betrayal, sharp as a glass shard, twists again. Someone spoke your name, marked your position. As you near the toll booths, the plaza transforms into a trap. A uniformed officer, his posture stiff, steps out, gesturing vaguely towards the booths, creating an artificial choke point. Your lane, the third from the left, remains clear for now, but the net is tightening. This is the key, the final piece of the journalist's puzzle, recovered from a safe deposit box after a tip from a nervous informant. You've been trying to crack its final layer of encryption for hours, a complex cipher guarding its deepest secrets. The siren, a low, guttural snarl, tears through the night. The utility van on your right swerves, attempting to box you in. No time for a rendezvous, no time for caution. Only escape. You wrench the wheel left, ignoring the blare of horns, cutting across two lanes with a desperate surge of acceleration. The engine growls under your command, a loyal beast. The black utility van scrapes against a concrete barrier, its driver cursing, but you're already past, angling for the leftmost toll lane, the one marked for automated transponders. The toll barrier, a red and white arm, hangs menacingly. You don't have a transponder. You don't care. Your foot presses hard on the accelerator, pushing the vehicle to its limit. The sedan behind you gives chase, its siren now a full-throated scream. The plaza lights blur into streaks of white and yellow. You brace yourself, a grim resolve etched onto your face. With a sickening crunch of plastic and metal, you smash through the barrier. It shatters, fragments flying like shrapnel, a defiant roar echoing in the night. You glance in the rearview mirror. The pursuing vehicles are momentarily stalled, their drivers navigating the broken barrier. You've bought yourself seconds, precious, life-saving seconds. As the city lights recede, swallowed by the vast expanse of the bridge, you pull out your burner phone. A name solidifies from the chaos: Orion. Beneath it, a ledger entry, a significant transfer of funds, dated days before the journalist's murder. The journalist wasn't just investigating a conspiracy, they were about to expose the orchestrator himself. This wasn't just a cover-up, it was a targeted assassination, sanctioned at the highest level. Your hands, though trembling slightly from the adrenaline, are steady as you commit the information to memory, then erase the temporary decryption. The data stick, now a burning ember of truth, is tucked away. There's no turning back. The chilling realization, a shard of ice, lodges deep within your gut. Orion isn't merely a code name for an operation, it is the direct, damning link. The politician, the architect of their own gleaming public image, is the orchestrator, pulling strings woven from the elite's highest echelons. The journalist wasn't just investigating a conspiracy, they were about to expose the very hand that guided the shadowy organization's most brutal acts. You feel the weight of it, a leaden cloak settling upon your shoulders, heavier than any badge you once wore. The city outside your grimy window hums, a distant, predatory growl. You trace the lines of the crumpled article, the journalist's face, vibrant and defiant, staring back. This wasn't a random act of violence, not a street-level miscalculation. You need more than a gut feeling, more than an educated guess. You need undeniable proof, a weapon to cut through the layers of deceit. Your fingers dance across the worn keys of the burner phone, the screen a pale rectangle of light in the dim room. A single, encrypted message is all you send. A location, a time, a single word, truth. You know the risk. It's the former intelligence operative, a ghost from your past, their face etched with the weariness of too many secrets. They're watching. They always are, you reply, your voice a rough gravel. You have it? The operative's hand, gnarled and trembling slightly, slips a small, unassuming USB drive into your palm. It feels impossibly light, yet its potential burden is immense. Everything. Encrypted. Level 7 protocols. It took a lifetime to bypass Thorn. Names. Dates. Bank transfers. Shell companies. The Orion Ledger. It links the politician directly to the journalist's surveillance, their funding, their silencing. A shudder runs through their frame. The journalist knew too much about the politician's rise, how it was orchestrated through the organization's network. They were about to publish details of a specific slush fund, funneled through a foundation, that directly financed Orion's covert operations. And the politicians signed off on every major decision. Your fingers clench around the drive, the plastic warm from their touch. The journalist's final draft. A hard copy. Hidden. From the politician's campaign manager to the organization's enforcer. A directive. Clean house, starting with the loose ends. That was days before the journalist was found. The air crackles with the weight of that confession. The missing link, the final, brutal piece of the puzzle, falls into place with a sickening thud. The politician didn't just know, they ordered it. You walk away, the USB drive a burning ember in your hand. Back in the solitude of your temporary refuge, you connect the drive, bypass the layers of encryption with practiced ease, and watch as the files bloom across the screen. The images are stark, unforgiving. Scanned pages of the journalist's final, unsent exposé. A ledger, meticulously kept, detailing Orion operations, each entry initialed, not by a faceless operative, but by the politician's distinct, looping signature. Your breath hitches. The evidence is irrefutable. It is a guillotine blade, honed and ready. You have it. Every single piece. Enough to bring down an empire. But simply leaking it won't be enough. You need to force their hand, draw the architect of this monstrous web into the light. A reckless, dangerous plan takes root in your mind. A direct challenge. A bait. You will use the very proof you hold to lure the politician into the open, to a place where their power means nothing, and the truth can finally breathe. You compose a message, short and precise, an invitation to a confrontation that will either be your redemption or your undoing. It goes to a secure, anonymous email known to be monitored by the politician's inner circle. I have the ledger. I have the journalist's final draft. I know everything about Orion. Midnight. Alone. Or I release it all. You know it's a trap. You can feel the invisible threads tightening around you already. But you've walked into traps before, and sometimes, the only way out is straight through the heart of the beast. Your vehicle, a borrowed, nondescript sedan, cuts through the sleeping city. The bridge ahead looms, a skeletal arch against the bruised velvet of the sky. Its lights shimmer, a false promise of guidance over the dark waters below. The wind whips around you, carrying the distant mournful cry of a ship's horn. You step out, the night air biting at your exposed skin. The USB drive, a tiny harbinger of doom, is tucked securely in your inner pocket. Every creak, every distant rumble, is amplified, scrutinized. You are the bait, standing exposed on the precipice of revelation, waiting for the architect of a journalist's murder to make their move. The stage is set. The final act begins. The air here tastes of ozone and distant salt, a metallic tang that scrapes at your throat. Overhead, the skeletal trusses of the bridge claw at a bruised, moonless sky, and the yellow glow of the plaza lights casts long, distorted shadows that dance with the exhaust haze. You feel the gaze before you see them. They are not subtle. They want you to see them. Two are broad-shouldered, their forms indistinct but menacing in the poor light, the enforcers. Between them, a third figure, less physically imposing but radiating an icy authority, steps forward. This is the architect, the puppet master, the one whose threads you have been tracing through the labyrinthine corridors of power. You cut the engine. The sudden quiet is deafening, punctuated only by the distant sigh of the river below and the faint, rhythmic clang of something metal against metal from the far side of the water. You push open the door, the groan of the hinge a defiant punctuation mark in the stillness. Your boots crunch on the scattered grit of the asphalt. This man, so close to the politician, so seemingly innocuous, was the spider at the center of the web. The journalist found you, didn't they? That's why they had to die. The architect's lips curl into a faint smile, devoid of warmth. A regrettable necessity. They were tenacious. Digging where they ought not. One of the enforcers shifts, a subtle movement that speaks of coiled readiness. Tenacious enough to uncover the truth, you counter, your gaze unwavering. Not just about the politician's ambition, but about the network of influence you built around them. The journalist saw it all. They had the ledger, didn't they? A mere fabrication, a scribbled fantasy. Not fantasy, you press on, a relentless current. Fact. The journalist was compiling a dossier, a comprehensive exposé. But more importantly, they found the link to your organization, the true power behind the throne. The one that dictates policy, that controls appointments, that shapes the future of this nation for its own gain. You take a step forward, a calculated risk. The enforcers tense. The murder wasn't a random act, a mugging gone wrong. That was the official story you fed to the authorities, the one that crippled my career. But the journalist was killed because they were about to publish. They had arranged a dead drop, a secure location for their findings, time to release if anything happened to them. You found out, didn't you? A small, almost insignificant detail. A coded message, left not in the dead drop, but in a place only I would know to look, a signature from an old, shared case. It led me to a hidden compartment in their apartment, not the ledger itself, but a digital key. A key to an encrypted drive, tucked away in a safe deposit box under a false name. A drive containing everything.
A muscle twitches in the architect's jaw. The smooth facade cracks, revealing the fury beneath. You lie. There is no drive. We scoured everything. You scoured what you thought was everything, you correct, a grim satisfaction blooming in your chest. But the journalist was smarter. They knew you'd come. The drive contains the full, unredacted truth. The politician's complicity, not just as a pawn, but as an active participant, aware of the illicit funding, willing to sacrifice principle for power. They knew the journalist was a threat, knew of the planned exposé, and gave you the tacit approval to handle it. The architect's face hardens, the last vestiges of their composure vanishing. A desperate fabrication, Thorn. And one that will die with you here. They nod almost imperceptibly to the enforcers. Perhaps, you say, a ghost of a smile touching your lips. But unlike the journalist, I didn't just leave one copy. This entire conversation, every word, every confession, is being broadcast. Live. To a dozen independent news outlets, to a secure server, to a prearranged dead man's switch that will release the full contents of that drive if I don't check in within the next 5 minutes. The architect's eyes widen, a primal rage twisting their features. You fool! You arrogant, self-righteous fool! One of the enforcers lunges, a blur of motion in the stark light. You anticipated it, already moving, a lifetime of training kicking in. You duck under the sweeping arm, rolling, the concrete scraping your shoulder. The other enforcer moves to flank you. The architect shouts, their voice raw with desperation, "Get the device." You twist, bringing an elbow up, feeling the satisfying crunch of bone against bone. You are outnumbered, outmatched, but you have one final card to play, and the clock is ticking down to 0. The broadcast continues, and the truth, like a relentless tide, is about to break. The world, once a symphony of brutal impacts and primal survival, now shrinks to the insistent whine of sirens, a rising chorus against the indifferent stars. You lie amidst the shattered glass of a toll booth window, the gritty asphalt a rough canvas beneath your cheek. A dull throb pulses in your ribs, a constant, fiery companion, but the fire in your gut burns hotter still, a triumphant, weary ember. Figures emerge from the periphery, their movements swift, purposeful. The 3 enforcers, their faces bruised and contorted, are being cuffed, their earlier ferocity replaced by a sullen, defeated silence. One, still groaning, clutches his arm, the bone you felt give way, a stark testament to the desperate violence that just unfolded. A shadow falls over you. You push up, wincing, every muscle protesting, but the urgency to understand, to see, propels you. He kneels beside you, his voice low, gravelly. Thorn! You made quite a mess here. You offer a weak, blood-flecked smile. Necessary mess. He nods slowly, then gestures to a small. You rasp, the words catching in your throat. For his empire. And the tomb he built for the journalist. The detective's eyes narrow, a spark of professional hunger igniting within them. We've got the politician's private jet grounded at the municipal airfield, a warrant just came through. The politician, the puppeteer, caught in his own web. This was the event you had sought, the public unmasking, the inevitable collision of power and truth. You push yourself to your feet, swaying slightly, and the detective's hand steadies your elbow, a gesture of unexpected solidarity. The flashbulbs begin to pop in the distance as the first news crews arrive, their cameras hungry for the spectacle.
You turn your back to them, your focus elsewhere. There's more, you say, your voice gaining strength. This isn't just about the politician. This is about the strings. The organization. Forensics is already swarming the senator's campaign headquarters. We've got a tip about an offshore account, shell companies. This drive. It could be the key to unlocking the next layer. He points to a young uniformed officer carefully bagging a burner phone found near where the politician's lead enforcer had fallen. We also found this. Encrypted, but our tech team is already on it. The enforcer was trying to smash it when we arrived. This was the reveal/discovery, not a single grand pronouncement, but a cascade of evidence, each piece of thread pulled from the tangled tapestry of deceit. The drive in your hand, the grounded jet, the burner phone, the offshore accounts. The journalist's death, once a forgotten footnote, would now be the searing indictment of an entire system. You feel the weight of it, not just the physical toll, but the immense, crushing weight of what you've unearthed. The truth, once a phantom, now stands stark and unyielding. The redemption you craved is a bitter draught, mixed with the knowledge of how deep the rot truly goes. Your badge may be gone, your reputation still tarnished in the eyes of many, but you have peeled back the layers of a carefully constructed lie. As the scene becomes a maelstrom of official activity, you lean against a battered concrete barrier, watching the organized chaos. But for you, the night is not yet over. The faces of the enforcers, their eyes devoid of remorse, flash in your mind. They were just the tip of the iceberg, and the true architects of this corruption remain hidden, for now. The lead detective approaches again, his expression softening slightly. Thorne. You did good. Real good. We'll need your full statement, of course. Everything. You nod, pushing away from the barrier. Your body aches, a symphony of bruises and strains, but your mind is clear, focused. The ghosts of your past, the journalist's unanswered plea, the shame of your downfall, they are still there, but now they are joined by a new resolve. The path to justice is long, winding, and fraught with peril, but you have found your way back to it, one painful, determined step at a time. And you, Marcus Thorne, are ready to hunt them. Headlights, a relentless river of white and red, snake across the asphalt, each vehicle a brief, self-contained world passing through the stark geometry of the booths. You stand where the concrete meets the dark current, an anchor point in the ceaseless flow, watching the ceaseless procession. Your gaze drifts over the faces in the passing cars, fleeting glimpses of lives rushing onward, oblivious to the quiet war that just concluded. The weight in your chest, a familiar companion for too long, has finally begun to lighten. Not vanished, no, for some burdens etched themselves into the very bone, but softened, made bearable. The final, desperate push came not with a bang, but a series of quiet, devastating tremors. The prosecutor's unwavering resolve, the whistleblower's anonymous package, the federal investigator's strategic leaks, they were all threads you helped weave, a tapestry of truth meticulously constructed to expose the rot. The prominent politician's carefully crafted empire, once seemingly impenetrable, now lies in fragments, exposed to the harsh glare of public scrutiny. Justice, you muse, is rarely a clean cut. A new ache settles in your shoulder, a phantom throb from the close call in the abandoned factory, a reminder of the price paid. The threat, has not entirely dissipated. This knowledge keeps a taut wire strung through your core, a constant, low tension. The shame of your downfall, the bitter taste of failure has been diluted by the potent draft of purpose fulfilled. You did not reclaim your badge, for that path is forever closed, but you reclaimed something far more vital, your own sense of honor, your conviction. The path to justice, you had known, was long, winding, and fraught with peril. But you walked it. You endured. And in doing so, you found a measure of peace, a quiet resolve that hums beneath the surface of your weariness. The world is not perfectly resolved, no grand cinematic ending where all villains are vanquished and heroes ride into the sunset. It is far more complex, far more nuanced. You pull your jacket tighter, the fabric worn but familiar. What now? The question hangs in the frigid air, vast as the expanse of the river flowing beneath the bridge. Yet, the keenness of your observation, the relentless drive to uncover truth, the quiet fire of your indignation, these remain. They are your new tools, honed sharp by the crucible of your journey. The passenger door opens with a soft click. You cannot discern the face of the driver, only a silhouette against the faint glow of the dashboard. No words are exchanged, none are needed. This is the new path, uncertain and undefined, stretching out like the unseen road beyond the bridge's arc. It is a world outside the official channels, a realm where justice is sought not by decree, but by quiet, persistent effort. The wind bites once more, a final, sharp reminder of the world's enduring indifference. Then, with a quiet certainty that belies the lingering tension in your shoulders, you step forward, leaving the ghosts of your past to finally rest, and walk towards the waiting vehicle, towards the vast, unknown expanse of your future.